Friends, it's indeed my great pleasure once again that today I am going to speak on this thematic subject matter philosophy, idea of philosophy and its perception from ancient times till date. The term philosophy, rooted in the Greek word philosophia, it means love of wisdom, is a discipline that examines and evaluates fundamental issues about existence, knowledge, ethics, and the nature of reality. The idea of philosophy and its perception steadily evolved from ancient times to the present day, highlighting shifts in focus, purpose, and perception. After giving the little background about the philosophy, now I would like to now see how the idea and perception philosophy evolved and changed over the centuries. In ancient societies like Mesopotamia, Egypt, and China, philosophical questions were interconnected with religious myths and supernatural beliefs. However, interestingly, concepts of life, death, and morality were attributed to gods or divine principles and subsequently laid the groundwork for philosophical inquiries. The ancient Greek thinkers like Thales, Pythagoras, and Heraclitus, they were the first thinkers who pursued wisdom independently from mythology, suggesting natural explanation for the cosmos. However, later on, Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, they formalized this pursuit and discussed ethics, politics, and metaphysics. Their works shaped Western thought, emphasizing rational inquiry and search for truth. Now, simultaneously, as in the ancient civilizations, the philosophical ideas were evolved. In the Eastern side, the Eastern concept of philosophy also in parallel evolved in India and China. The Indian scholars, they pursued Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism and explained reality, self, and suffering with emphasis on moksha or nirvana. However, the Chinese tradition, the Chinese philosophical tradition, we find the philosophers like Confucius and Laozi highlighted morality and social harmony. When we come to the during the Middle Ages, we find that philosophy in Europe was greatly impacted by what? By Christian theology. Scholars like St. Augustine, St. Thomas Aquinas, thinkers, attempted to reconcile the Greek philosophy with Christian doctrines. In the Islamic world, we find the scholars like Avicenna and Averroes developed Aristotle and Plato ideas by incorporating rationalism coupled with religious beliefs. However, we find further in the Islamic world, the scholars, while preserving Greek texts, influenced Christian scholasticism, and later on in China, New Confucianism emerged, blending Confucius Buddhist ideas and explained the question of human nature and governance. Now, afterwards, we find the period what we call a Renaissance, and we can call it as early modern philosophy, ideas and perception. During this period, it furthered and renewed interest in classical antiquity and humanism. We find thinkers like Machiavelli, Descartes, and Bacon critically examined human potential and empirical observation. During this period, we also find the rise and growth of scientific inventions that changed philosophy's focus and form, as thinkers like Galileo, Newton, and Kepler suggested primarily experimentation and observation over purely speculative reasons, and influenced philosophers like Descartes and Spinoza, who advocated and sought foundational knowledge through reason and observation. Interestingly, during early modern philosophy, political thinkers such as Locke and Hume stated that knowledge comes from sensory perceptions or sensory experiences, laying the foundations for modern scientific inquiry. Now, let us come now. What are the aspects of philosophy in 19th century? We find during 19th century romantic thinkers and idealist thinkers, two groups of scholars. They developed the idea of philosophy. The romantic thinkers, they advocated for imagination, intuition, and individuality. And idealist systems or idealist ideologues, thinkers such as Kant, Fichte, and Hegel propounded that reality is shaped by human perceptions and consciousness, while Hegel preparing and propagated the historical dialectics process and the development of idea. Thinkers such as Kierkegaard and Nietzsche started the, the process of exploring subjective experience and critically examined the personal responsibility and authenticity. Now, in the 20th century onwards, we find the important features that developed. First, we find the evolution of analytical philosophy, or we may call it as analytic philosophy. It relied and highlighted language, logic, and clarity with figures, the representative thinkers in this category were Russell and Wittgenstein. Now, in the another category of philosophers of the 20th century, we find it, we call it, they have been termed as continental philosophy. Now, this includes existentialism, phenomenology, and postmodernism. And the prominent thinkers who championed this aspect were Hegel, Sartre, and Foucault. Another feature in the 20th century philosophy we find the approach to pragmatism and process philosophy. In USA, pragmatism emerged. Thinkers such as James and Dewey, they relieved they relied on practical effects and reality would offshoots in examining ideas. We also find process philosophers like Whitehead. They relied on the dynamic and interrelated nature of reality. One of the another features of the 20th century find the thinkers such as Descartes and Lyotard disputed the possibility of objective truth and instead stated that knowledge is relative and governed by socio linguistic structures. So we find that the Western philosophy thus evolved from metaphysical and theological inquiry to embrace science, politics, language, and ethics, adapting to each era's concern while uh, uh, continuing to debate or discuss perennial questions about reality and knowledge. Now, let us see the what is the idea of philosophy in the contemporary world. At present, philosophy is deeply specialized as well as diverse. The discipline ambit and scope has become wide, and fields like ethics, political philosophy, and environmental philosophy, artificial intelligence, globalization, climate change, human rights, etc., are very much has become part of it. Now, the what is the perception of philosophy in present scenario or at present? It has evolved from sacred wisdom tied to religion and myth to rational explanation. Secondly, it has become a complex discipline encompassing the disciplines such as ethics, science, and culture. While generally people consider philosophy as essential to addressing ethical existential issues, however, at the same time, others also view philosophy as overly abstract. Still, it might be said that, in all fairness, that philosophy as a discipline exists and even remains valued valued for fostering critical thinking, critically questions assumptions, and last not least, the complexities of human experience. Now, after in narrating in nutshell about the idea of philosophy, now I would like to say specifically regarding Indian philosophy. The Indian philosophy it spans from ancient to modern times and includes religions and secular philosophies. It generally encompasses questions of metaphysics, ethics, epistemology, and the nature of reality, self, and liberation. There are two main schools and concepts of Indian philosophy. One is categorized as Astika, and the other is Nastika. Now, the Astika is known as the Orthodox schools. There are six Orthodox schools. They believe in the Astik. They believed in the authority of Vedas. And what are these Orthodox schools? The categorization is just like this. Nyaya. It is based on Nyaya Sutras, outlines rules of logical argument. Vaisheshika, school of atomism, highlights that the universe is composed of indivisible items and operate through natural laws. Sankhya, one of the oldest schools, asserts that reality consists of two eternal principles: Purusha, consciousness, and Prakriti, matter. Liberation is achieved by recognizing the distinctiveness of Purusha from Prakriti. Next school, Astika school, is Yoga, closely associated with Sankhya. Patanjali Yoga Sutras are its main text. It propounds the eightfold path of Ashtanga Yoga. Another school is known as Mimamsa, Purva Mimamsa, deeply ritualistic school, focuses on ritual action and the interpretation of Vedas. Next, very important school is Vedanta, known as Uttara Mimamsa school. Its key texts include Upanishads, Brahma Sutras, and Bhagavad Gita. Major branches within Vedanta are Advait, non dualism, Vishishta Advait, qualified non dualism, and Dvaita, dualism. The other category of schools is known as Nastika. Sorry. Now, these schools under the Nastika category, they reject the authority of Vedas and often provide alternative philosophies. The important schools under this category, first is Charvak. It is a materialistic and skeptical school, condemns the existence of life after death, karma, instead focuses on the empirical and sensory world. Another school under Nastika is Buddhism. It seeks liberation from suffering through the Eightfold Path, emphasizing impermanence, anika, suffering, dukkha, and non self matter. Another school is Jainism. It emphasized on non-violence, ahimsa, truthfulness, and ecstatism. Path to liberation is based on self-control and the purification of the soul. And another category of school under the Nastika is known as Ajivika. And now this is a lesser known school, but it follows deterministic philosophy, where all events are predetermined, rejecting free will. This comes to discuss the important concepts of Indian philosophy, which are fundamental across many other schools at the same time. The concepts, we may call it as karma, moksha, dharma, atman and brahman, avidya and maya. In a very nutshell, let me explain what is karma. The law of moral cause and effect that influence future lives. Moksha, the ultimate goal of liberation, of freedom from the cycle of birth and death, samsara. Dharma, the moral order or duty, often specific to each individual's role in society. Atman and Brahman. Atman is the individual soul, while Brahman is the ultimate reality. Avidya and Maya. Avidya is ignorance, and Maya is illusion. These are the concept they explain the human misperception of reality, particularly in Vedanta and Buddhism. If we say a little bit about what are the modern Indian philosophers, the modern Indian philosophers say, which has contributed to the in the realm of philosophy, we may call it as Swami Vivekananda, Aurobindo Ghosh, Mahatma Gandhi, and B.R. Ambedkar. These are quite few illustrative. However, there are many, many more. But the idea of mentioning these thinkers is simple, that they contributed differently in the field of socio-economic life, spirituality, and social justice at the same time. Now these thinkers, they adopted traditional Indian philosophies to critically examine social, political, and ethical issues in modern world, and they contributed to the subject matter relating to nonviolence, social justice, and spirituality in the context of Indian independence and modernity as well. Now, in the end, I would like to mention very few distinctive features of Indian philosophy. The distinctive features may be enumerated as interconnectedness of philosophy and life, pluralism and tolerance, and emphasis on moksha and liberation. Let me explain in a very short way what are these. Interconnection of philosophy and life can be explained like this. It emphasizes practical applications, linking metaphysical ideas with ways to live a moral and spiritual life. Pluralism and tolerance can be explained like this, that there is an openness to multiple perspectives and debates, often reflected in Anekavad, many sidedness, especially in Jainism and other traditions. Third distinction feature, that is emphasis on moksha and liberation. Many schools of Indian philosophy, especially Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, they focus on liberation as the ultimate aim. As such, in nutshell, it may be well stated that Indian philosophy, through its diversity and depth, offers not only system of thought but achieving paths as well towards undertaking, understanding existence, achieving ethical living, and seeking ultimate freedom. These are, in a nutshell, my narration about the subject matter of philosophy. Thank you very, very much. Thank you very, very much.